It's always so exciting when I go, I'm plugged in. Hello, it's so nice to see you all here. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Reverend Maureen, for inviting me. Thank you, Reverend Les. Thank you, Reverend Sandra. Thank you, Jose. Thank you to all of you. This is one of my most favorite places to be, I have to tell you, is right here, right now, is being right here. So I am honored to be back. I'm honored to be here, and I just want to acknowledge all of you. Aren't Wednesdays great? Like in the middle of the week, and you're here. This is brilliant. So I want to acknowledge each and every one of you for being here tonight, to getting out of your house, whatever you were doing, and driving here to be with us, because that means the world to me. Because if you didn't show up, I'd be talking to myself. And I do that a lot. I did that this week to someone, and I turned around and said, I quoted straight out of Reverend Michael's book where he says, highly evolved people talk to themselves, not the world. And I went, then I'm highly evolved this week because I talk to myself all the time. So if you have not been at this center before, I would just love for you to stand up, please, if this is your very first time here. Woohoo! Brilliant. Thank you for coming. I invite you to come back to this center. This center is a powerhouse of amazing, amazing events and happenings. Reverend Maureen is here and fills this place with her love and overflowing wisdom. So please come back, check the wall, hear what we have to say about what's happening, and participate, because there are brilliant ministers here, brilliant practitioners, and the consciousness is very thick and rich. So I welcome you to being here tonight. I want to know who has an intention of why they're here tonight, and those of you that have been with me before, I know you are going to scream it out because you know I ask you this all this time. So what's your intention in being here tonight? Nicole, what's your intention? Of course you knew it. What's your intention?
My intention is to remain present and allow the Spirit to flow through me for peace, focus, and remaining open and allowing love to move.
That's a brilliant intention. Did you see how she just rolled that one right off? That was good. Okay, who else? Who has an intention to be here tonight? Yes?
Clarity on the next steps in my life.
Fabulous. Clarity on the next steps of your life. Anyone else? Yes? Say that again. In alignment. Perfect. Beautiful. Anyone else? Someone else has an intention tonight? Hannah, I know you have an intention tonight. Of course you do. If you know I'm going to call, get ready. So what's your intention?
My intention is for clarity.
Beautiful. Clarity and strength to move forward. Anyone else have one that's yes?
To expand my awareness of who we are.
Brilliant. To expand my awareness of who we are. Yes?
A quick recovery. I'm having surgery. I want a quick recovery, quick.
Brilliant. Her intention is to have a quick recovery. Quick recovery. So this evening is going to be a little bit different than usual. Usually you're here and I'm talking. So I will be talking tonight. And the other part is, after I give you a talk that means a lot to me about spiritual action, then we're going to open it up for questions and answers. So I want to invite you that while you're sitting here, if something pops up, like, what does she mean right there? What is she talking about? Please write it down. Because when we come to the portion where I say, bring on the questions, I want you to bring them on. Okay, are we in agreement with that? So there's a reason I asked for what your intention was. This whole evening is about spiritual practice in action. Now, that's very interesting in life right now. I said to someone the other day, I said, isn't it funny how life is moving really fast? We're all pretty much in agreement with that, right? It's moving fast. Technology is fast. Everything is fast. You need something, you could have it in a second. And so if we look around the room and said to someone, so how's your spiritual practice? What's it look like? How many people would say, I meditate 3 times a week, right? Or I meditate every day, or this or that? How many people would say, I am in prayer 24 hours a day? How many people would say, well, I'm intending to meditate. I'm going to start meditating next week, right? I'm going to intend to meditate next week. My point is, if the world is moving fast and technology is moving fast, then we are going to be left behind and not stay conscious if our spiritual practice isn't right there at the same level that everything else is moving, or farther. So our spiritual practice, propelling us into action, is vitally important right now. It's like on the cutting edge of where we are to stay awake as spiritual individuals, excuse me, I can say that word, is for us to be so present to what our practice is. So when Sandra was up here talking, she was talking about living her practice. So even though she had something that was a fearful thought that was coming through, she knew how to neutralize that thought. This is what we're going to be discussing tonight. All the pathways of how your spiritual practice is in powerful action all the time. Years ago, I had a client look at me in a session, and I pray a lot. Most people know that. And they said to me, wow, Kim, how often do you pray? And I had to stop for a minute, and I thought, and I looked and said, it'd probably be a better question to say, when am I not? Because prayer is something that's a constant for me. It's as I'm walking into this room, it's as I'm waking up in the morning, as I'm going to sleep at night, that's part of my practice that is activated 24/7. But there's so many more avenues of practice that we get to expand upon. So I would love for you to walk out this evening when you do with more insight to, wait a minute, where can I apply this? Where can I apply that? So that it's not just that we meditate in the morning or say our prayers at the end of the night, which is all great, which is brilliant, or that we come to the center on Sunday, but that moment by moment by moment, that you have a tool bag that is so full that you are living your practice every moment. As you walk into the market, as you walk out of the market, as you have a conversation with someone that could be very difficult, that you still boldly have that conversation. So that's what this evening is about. Where can we amplify our practices so that they are just part of our beingness, that they are activated at the same level as technology is speeding up right now? So that's where we're headed this evening. And I want us to just be open. Our agreement together, if I may, is that we have a joint intention, all of us, unified intention, to stay open and receptive this evening, to share from the heart and be willing to absolutely express and take in different avenues that create new possibilities for you. Is that agreed? Brilliant. Good. So the very first one I want to talk about, which is really important, is one of the pathways. And again, hear me on this. I'm going to focus on 4 tonight, and there's many. There's many. So let's just know that these 4 that are going to be popping up this evening are what I'm going to ask you to activate, and then I want you to keep diving deeper and deeper as you leave this evening. The very first one is that we must plug into spirit. If we are to stay active in our activity of working our spiritual practices, we must be plugged into the Almighty, whatever you wish to call it. Years ago, I stood at a center and I said, okay, so are we all in agreement here that there's just one God, one power, one spirit, whatever you name it, there's just one? And everyone in the room said yes. Are we in agreement with that here? Yes. And we're in agreement that spirit works through us, right? It's not outside of us, it works through us. It is right inside of us right now, yes? And then when we get over here, so if the spirit is, so just throw out some words. Spirit God is what? Love, joy, peace, calm, forgiveness, unlimited, correct? There's no expiration date on spirit. It can do anything through us. It is prosperity, happiness, joy, everything, correct? So when we get to us, can we claim we are abundant, prosperous, happy, fulfilling, forgiving, intentional, everything that spirit is? Yes, and we must stay plugged into that at all times. That we're working with this unlimited, amazing power and presence that resides in the core of each and every one of us. It unifies us. It's who we are in this world, that we're spiritual beings moving through this world together in one beautiful, beautiful, beautiful space. And we get to bump into each other all the time. But when we forget to plug in to spirit, to the almighty source of all, when we wake up and just head out the door, what I say, if you're not plugged in, there's a good chance you're hanging out in reaction, aren't you? Because you're reacting to the outside world instead of first plugging into, what am I? One of my most favorite movies, some of you know this, is Avatar. I know I'm really funny about these things. And guess why Avatar? I love that movie. How many times in that movie do they give us the examples that they plug into spirit? Does anyone notice that? They go to the tree of wisdom, and they all have these long, beautiful, like braids, right, in their hair. They take their braid, and they pull it up, and the tree of wisdom, is that what the tree is called? Tree of wisdom, comes down, and they mingle like this, and they're plugged into spirit, and you could see this just wealth of information and joy and connection of who they are comes riding through them. They don't get on the back of their horse until they plug into their horse and become one with their horse. So then they're in sync with this creature. But we forget to plug into something that is so tangible. It's our very breath. It's not a difficult thing to do. It's just our conscious awareness of where am I in this moment, staying awake and present to being so tuned into spirit that all you have to do is take a breath. You take a breath and remember, oh yeah, it resides right here. That's why I'll look at people and say, my intention is to help you remember who you are. Because the wisdom of all resides within you. And when you remember who you are and tap into that presence and refuse to be a reactionary space of what's happening in the world, that you become bigger than the circumstances, then you are unstoppable in your spiritual practice because you're connected to the Most High. You're connected to all that is. So any way that you can plug in each day, I want you to think about what is it, a way that I could plug in. Some people, it is your morning prayers. It is meditation. These are opportunities for us to just lean in. When Sandra had us come into the stillness for a moment, an opportunity to just lean into spirit, to remember for a moment in this really full world, I could just be still. Do you know how many times we have an opportunity to do that? Sitting in the doctor's office, waiting in the carpool line for your child, standing in the market for a minute. You could be meditating with your eyes open, but be present to, I'm just going to be present to this moment. Every time we come back to the present moment, what's happening in this world, where am I at? Where am I at? Just check yourself. Am I plugged into that universal field, or am I reacting to circumstances outside of us? Is this making sense? So right now, as I'm saying this to you, I want you to just in your mind's eye, just think, where are the avenues, where are the pathways for me to plug in each day before I get activated into my life? Just think about that for a moment. It could be your intentions. It could be your prayers. It could be your meditation moment. It could be you looking at someone, a beloved that you live with, and just acknowledging them. Acknowledgement, gratitude, all bring us back to the core and the presence of who we are. Recently, I had a moment with my beautiful children. I'm very grateful. I have two of the most amazing beings that live with me. Lucas does when he's home. And I had this opportunity that we needed to have like one of those really intense, I want to say intense, but a serious conversation. You know, mom, kids, serious conversation. And when they came to sit down, I looked at them, and the first thing that came to me was to acknowledge them for how amazing they are. Like I had to look at them and say, I see you. I see that you've grown in this way and this way and this way, and I know who you are, and I'm so proud of you. And I see you and all these things that I truly know of them. Because acknowledgement brings us back to that place of connection that we remember who we are. When we could connect with someone in the heart, those moments with them, we were connected the rest of the conversation because we started it off from a place of being present, what we were grateful for. That even if there's a difficult conversation to have in a household, if you start off with what I know is that I love you and I'm so grateful to be in this life with you. And my intention is for us to have this conversation, whatever it's about. Is this making sense? So that any space we can, that is an opportunity for us to plug into what do I know? What do I know? That love is all that matters. Ask bigger questions. When we ask bigger questions, we plug into spirit. And you know how many times I'll say to people sitting in my office when they say something, I'll say, could you just ask a different question right now? Just ask it again. Let's try another way to ask it. Instead of, why did this happen to me? This is not fair. So let's ask another question. All right? So any place we could begin right now to plug into spirit and truly know it's your breath. It's the easiest way. Wherever you're at, if you forget who you are and you're in the middle of a reactionary moment, just take a second to breathe and remember. I'll tell that to people, just tap your heart. Just tap your heart and remind yourself to get back to your heart for a minute and know, oh yeah, I'm connected to this unlimited, powerful, all-knowing God, and that resides within me. So this circumstance is nothing compared to that. Right? Brilliant. So that's the first one. Plug in. Think of Avatar, and you'll crack up. You'll be like, oh yeah, what was she talking about? Everyone go get the movie now, please watch it. So the next one, besides as plugging in, how many of us, the word action, when I say I want us to be in action with our spiritual practice, how many of us know that when you're in action, that you're a doer, that you're a major doer in life? Who's a doer? Doers. Move fast, like really fast at times. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Look at my parents. If you follow them around, you'll understand why I cannot stop moving. I got it straight from them. It's like do. And for years, my doing was propelled from a space of either having to do it good enough or fast enough, or I got to do it this way. We all do this, right? Until we remember, wait a second, is my doing coming from beingness or from the act of I just need to do this so that it's complete? I want to talk to you about your action comes from being first. Being is first before you ever do. Ricky Byers-Beckwith sings so many amazing songs, but one that she sings, if you've heard it, she talks about when she slammed against the glass. Does anyone know that song? Heather probably knows that song. I'm going to read a piece of it to you because when Ricky explains it, you could really feel what she was going through at the time, because her lyrics are all about what's going on for her, and they come through her and Reverend Michael. So this one, she says, I was wandering around wondering why I hit the glass with so much speed. What was I doing that I didn't see the glass? I was moving way too fast. I felt like I was standing still, so I tried to gain some speed with my mind and my will. I wanted to feel something moving in me, moving like the fishes in the sea, rushing to get it done, needing to be one, with the real vibration, sweet liberation, rushing to get it done, needing to be one with the one. I want you to hear those last lines. Rushing to get it done, but needing to be one with the one. How many of us are rushing and rushing in our act of doing just to get it done, right? We're missing opportunities where there are spiritual connection that are deep and rich because we're rushing to get something done. What I'm inviting you to do tonight is not to jump straight to the doing. When you hear me say, I want my invitation is for your spiritual practice to be absolutely in action, but not to jump straight to doing, to begin from your beingness. I did an entire retreat on this once about, can you begin in your beingness before you ever move into your doingness? So that's why we began our first step with, you must plug in the Spirit. That's when you're in your beingness. If you come from a state of being still, knowing the space of what is my intention today, and you're absolutely connected to Spirit before you move into the activity, then your action is propelled by Spirit. It's not a reaction to the world of your list of to-dos. Does this make sense? So the more that you can be first, that's why it goes B comes before D in the alphabet. Be first before you do. Then you will be activating your spiritual practices because it's coming from a place of knowing that all is truly well. Did you hear Sandra say she knew all was well in the midst of this? So we come from the place of I am being first. I'm connected to Spirit. I'm knowing that I'm absolutely connected. And then your intention to create comes from your beingness. That's why great artists sit and masterpieces are created, because they're coming from the place of being and listening as their activity moves into doing. That's why when you read great books, people have done it from a place of listening. They're listening and being, and then propelled into the activity of doing. So I want to just inspire you to be present in life of where are you doing, because we do that, or where are you coming from a place of deep being that propels you into action. Your action is to be propelled by being first. Yes? So wherever you could come to a place of my being is the activity of prayer. Recently, I had this very interesting evening that lately some of my kids tend to get me rushing to the hospital a lot in the last few years. And this is all about being, moving into doing. And in the last, I don't know, maybe last month, or maybe, I can't remember now, I think it was a month ago, I got one of those calls from Lucas, and he's in San Diego in school, and his call says, Mom, this may not be a very good time to tell you this, but I just got hurt and fell, and I think I'm on my way to urgent care. And I said, okay, Lucas. And I was on my way to a big meeting, that it was a final meeting that I need to be. I said, okay, Lucas, do you have your insurance card with you? No, I don't. I said, okay, I'll take a picture. Thank goodness for technology, right? I can take a picture and I'll text it to you so you'll have it when you get to urgent care. Do you need me to be there? No, I just think I just need to go to urgent care, but I've got some blood in the back of my head, is what I hear. I go, okay, call me as soon as you get to urgent care. So I go around grabbing my things for the meeting, and all of a sudden, 30 minutes later, the phone rings again. I pick it up, and here's a voice I've never heard in my life, and he goes, this is the dean of the university. Is this Kim Terranova? I said, yes. And he said, your son, I don't think, is describing the fullness of what is happening here at the school. And I went, okay, would you tell me? And he said, ma'am, the ambulance is here. Your son may have head trauma. He cannot go to urgent care. He's being rushed to the emergency room right now. And you can imagine, I'm home by myself. Okay, I'm packing my bags right now. I've done this before with my kids, where I've been on the phone and went like putting things in the bags as fast as I can, knowing I don't know when I'm coming back. So I was packing bags and said, I just found out like which hospital where. It's 5 o'clock. And I'm going from Malibu to San Diego. I said, I'll see you in 4 or 5 hours. Could someone please keep me posted how my son's doing? And so sure enough, the very next step, as the bags are being packed and the phone is going down, is I knew if I jumped straight into doing this, could you imagine what I would even be like when I got there 4.5 hours later? I wouldn't even be in one piece. I'd be such a wreck. The very first thing that had to happen was absolutely, no matter what was going on, was prayer. That no one was in that house, but I was still and out loud praying, knowing that exactly where he was, that he had all his needs met, that he was surrounded in love and care, that the perfect doctors were there for him, that his transport was safe, that the roads would open up for me, that it was like boom, 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 boom. And so it is, amen. Let me pack my bags and get in the car. Which continued in the car, of course. Oh, I think I texted one or two. I think I texted my practitioner before I left and got in the car. I was like, please start praying now. and kept driving. Point being, our beingness, even in the midst of what seems to be like, I can't stop now, we must. It's a spiritual priority to be present in the midst of those moments that seem like you can't stop and you must. And it may only take you 10 seconds, it may take you 1 minute. But whatever it is, it's a priority to be still so that then from that moment on, and again, my pathway was prayer. There's many others. Whatever is connecting you to your source, to tune into your action is motivated from a center that you are grounded in truth and then propelled into action. Making sense? So you want to hear the funniest part of the story? 4.5 hours later, I get down there. I walk in. He's just being seen. They say, oh, the doctor's just seeing him now. And now in the midst of this, I was getting texts. Now, I wasn't reading them. I was driving. But I was getting Siri messages. He's fine. He's fine. I didn't talk to him. He's sitting in the waiting room. Everything's okay. Walk in. I open the door to come back there. And he's sitting in bed, and they're pulling his hair back and getting ready to give him shots in his head and all this. And he looks up in front of everyone and goes, do you see what I got to do to get my mom to come visit me? I looked at him, oh, you little stinker. You little stinker. You see what you got to do to get me? I said, yeah, I see what you have to do to get me to come visit me. I was just here a week ago. Anyway, whatever it takes, the point being was, and actually, now that I just said that, thank goodness I prayed before I walked in, because could you imagine if he said that and I was like, oh, really? So yes, stitches in his head, the whole thing. They tried to do staples, couldn't do staples, but they stitched him up. And it wasn't until late that, it was like 1 in the morning by the time we got back to a person that used their condo. And all of a sudden I heard this little voice from this huge 6'2" kid say, Mom? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I'm so sorry. I think I've been rushing you to the hospital too much lately. You have? I said, could you just like, stay conscious, Lucas. Just stay conscious when you're on that skateboard or whatever it was. So the next thing is, After we plug into spirit, after our action is motivated by our beingness, the next thing down the pike, are we having wonderful lights going back and forth? Huh? Oh, it's great. We're having like this acoustics happening. The next one is we must change the conversation in our head. How many of you in here can hear yourself 24/7 and what the chatter's going on in your head? I know all of you can. How come not everyone's raising their hand? I know you could hear the chatter. How many of you would be okay if the person sitting next to you heard your ongoing chatter going on 24/7? You wouldn't be okay with that. But we accept it in ourselves that the chatter is going on. It's a necessity for us to change the conversation that's going on in our head. I want to read something to you by Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements. He says, Jason will love this. He says, we talk to ourselves constantly, and most of the time we say things like, oh, I look fat, I look ugly, I'm getting old, I'm losing my hair, I'm stupid, I never understand anything, I'll never be good enough, and I'm never going to be perfect or do this right. That's the chatter is going on. How many of you have said that in your head, in your chatter? It's going on. If we don't interrupt the chatter in our head, guess what? The universe, God, is listening. We live in a responsive world. This is a responding universe. It isn't one that's going, stop. Don't believe that. Please don't believe that. None of it's true. Let me talk you back out of that. We have to be responsible for our own chatter. We must be the ones that stay awake and know that we have the opportunity to change up what's happening. The first thing is we've got to interrupt it. We've got to hear it. So when you hear it, it's your responsibility to know, I'm not listening to that anymore. If you live in my house, you could hear us. We will be walking through the house and you'll hear somebody go, whoa, that one's not flying here anymore. Because we have to interrupt the pattern. We have to take a breath and think, what was that chatter that I was just saying? Stories can go on. We could write amazing stories in our head. She did that. He did this. Oh, wow, I bet you that meant, she just looked at me really funny. I bet you she doesn't like what I'm on tonight. It can just go on and on. But we are the ones that if we're staying conscious, we must interrupt the pattern and interject to the truth of what we know to be. Right here is where you ask a bigger question. Right here is where I'll ask clients to say, if you catch it, and then you can say to yourself, what is the most loving thing I could say to myself right now? Imagine if every time you caught yourself with a pattern that was not supporting you, was not loving you, that you caught it and right then went, what's the most loving thing I could say to myself right now? I looked at a client yesterday who was struggling with something, and I said to her, do you realize that when that went down so many years ago, did you intend to cause harm when that happened? She said, no, of course I didn't. I said, I know that. And can you know that now and forgive yourself so that chatter doesn't have to keep going? Like you know what you know now. Catch it. An old belief that we've been carrying for how long? Catch it, take a breath and think, wow, what's the most loving thing I could do for myself right now? Can I let that go or am I going to keep carrying it around? If that story does not serve you anymore, you can let it go. With a breath, you can choose, I'm choosing to let this one go. This one is not serving me any longer. But we must be the responsible ones to catch and change that dialogue that's running around in our head. Can we be agreeing that we're going to start catching that? Beautiful. Now, this fourth one is one of my favorites. How many of you have heard me say before, it is a necessity to absolutely cultivate the field of receptivity? I know some of you have, because I've seen you here before. Thank you. Diane's like, she's that to me. There's a space within us. I know you've heard me say at times, well, what can we celebrate about this? What can you celebrate what's going on? Because very often, things are happening in people's lives, and we're not celebrating them. How often in your life has something good happen, and if someone looks at you and said, that is amazing that you did that. How did you do that? And someone goes, oh, it was nothing. So guess what I messed up on? Right? Like we don't take in, wow, I just did that really well. This is why I have my clients writing acknowledgement journals. Someone will say, Kimberly, I'm supposed to write down, I acknowledge myself for something. I'll say, yes, please, please. Can you just give me 3 of them right now? Because when you could acknowledge yourself and celebrate your own magnificence, that something shifted within you, then you are open in that moment to building and cultivating the field of receptivity. The universe spirit is ever, ever, ever giving. Do you know that? Ever giving. There is no cap. There is no limit to, oh, you've got enough. We're not giving you any more. That was it. It doesn't happen. It's us in our own consciousness at times, whatever's going on with us, that we may block it like, oh, I don't know if I deserve that much joy. Or that much love. Oh, wow, that person really loves me. I don't know. I don't know if I could. If the more we cultivate the field and open our hearts, think about the times that somebody was showering you with love and really adoring you and saying, you are brilliant. I said that to you just recently. You are brilliant. I walked in Hannah's house and watched her create this beautiful home on her own, and I burst into tears. I was like, look what you created. This is amazing. But how often do we not let it sink in and just stand there for a moment for whatever reason? In society, at times we've been taught like, oh, we can't take too much of that credit. Just allow it in. Just to surrender to, wait a second, my intention is to cultivate this field of receptivity. Because when we are open and accepting, more comes. What you focus on just keeps growing. So wherever your intention is, it is going to keep multiplying. Where you are celebrating the goodness in your life, it will keep multiplying. When we're celebrating that you are going to be healthy and whole in that procedure, it's going to keep multiplying. It's all consciousness. So your invitation here is to think, how am I cultivating my field of receptivity? Am I receiving? Am I allowing the good in? Am I accepting when gifts of love come to me, whether it's in a kindness or whether it's a sweet email or a card or someone just looking at me and saying, oh my God, you look great, you're beautiful. Where am I saying thank you? Or where if someone looks at you and says, thank you, you changed my life in that one word you said to me 10 years ago. I want you to just be aware that your intention every day is to stay open to accepting all the good that is present, so just more keeps coming. Yes? I want to read something to you about that as well, because you know I just love... Don Miguel was talking to me today. He says, the human mind is like a fertile ground where seeds are continually being planted. The seeds are opinions, ideas, and concepts. You plant a seed, a thought, and it grows. The word is like a seed, and the human mind is so fertile. I want you to hear that. The human mind is so fertile. The only problem is that too often it is fertile for the seeds of fear. Every human mind is fertile, but only for those kinds of seeds it is prepared for. I want you to prepare for the seeds of unconditional love overflowing in your life, abundant prosperity, that all needs met, that any place there is a financial strain, that you accept the abundance of the universe supporting you from all ways. And watch, when you do continue to cultivate that, that is exactly what will happen. Suddenly someone will give you something that you didn't know you needed. A check will come in that you didn't even plan for, because you're cultivating the field. I'm receptive and open to accept all the good that is available for me. Okay? Everyone still with me? Oh, good. Oh, good. So, with this, I want to open it up to some questions right now. I want you to just throw out some questions that if anything I'm saying is landing in a place of like, well, what does she mean there? Then I want to know. So who's got a question that's brewing? Because I saw pen and paper out. And I love that. If you just know me, I love when I see pen and paper out because I'm a huge journaler. Question. Somebody's got a question. Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. That's even better.
Right after the first one, must plug in spirit. What was the second step?
Oh, good job. The second one is action comes from beingness propelled into doingness. That the action of your life comes first from being and then propels you into doing. But your doing only comes from where are you being? What's the next one?
Second question is, I've always struggled.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you.
I've always struggled with this my whole life. How do I
Thank you, Jose.
how do I build a better relationship with my higher power? Or how do I start to build a relationship? Because I don't have one at this point, and
Beautiful.
I don't even know
Question.
where to begin.
So what do you believe?
I believe in a higher power, no question.
Beautiful.
I
So
call it, nature, ocean, I call it many things, God, I have many names for it,
but your question is, how do I build this relationship, correct?
A lot of times I'm praying, and I feel like I'm praying just to do it. It's not coming from the heart. It's just like I'm doing it just to do it.
Great. So let me ask you this. When I was talking about first going to your beingness, did that make sense to you?
Yes.
Great. So the pathway to that, first and foremost, is always willingness. When you open the door to willingness and invite spirit to have its way with you, it will. So just by you opening a door to stating, I'm willing and available to have the connection, my connection with my higher power be rich and tangible. Just that is a brilliant beginning. Is this making sense?
And then will it show it to itself?
Your practice, your continual willingness to keep practicing, you bet it'll be showing up everywhere. But it's your willingness to open the door and to absolutely be in continual practice of building that muscle of your own spiritual practice. So everything I'm talking about and more that you already know, it's taking the time and making it a priority that your beingness, that plugging into spirit, is vitally important in life. Does that answer your question, Wesley? Okay, it reminded me of something I wanted to read, and thank you for asking that. Thank you. I was going to read this to you earlier. Reverend Michael says, that which transforms your life is what you practice, and what you practice constitutes your personal laws of life. Not what you merely believe in, but what you practice. And here's the really good part. But if you want to be anchored in reality, it takes practice, practice, practice. We are not here to be euphoric, but we are here to get free. Rudimentary spirituality is theory. Advanced spirituality is practice. Just get that. That's amazing. Advanced spirituality is practice. It's not just knowing it. You've heard me say before, knowledge is one thing. You could have a lot of knowledge. Wisdom is when you live that knowledge, when you are absolutely committed to, now I know this, and I'm going to live it, even when it's hard.
Sorry, could you repeat it real quick? Advanced?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Advanced. Hold on. Rudimentary spirituality is theory. Advanced spirituality is practice. Thank you for that question, Wesley. Anyone else? I know there's more questions. I could hear your chatter. Dad! Don't you get to ask me questions all the time and I get to ask you questions? Here, Sandra's got the mic for you in your big booming voice.
When you say spiritual practice, and when you, like this gentleman here wants to open himself up to relationship, just putting it out there in the universe with good intentions, is that the same thing you're talking about, or am I missing something here?
Say that again, Dad.
Putting, like say, a good relationship, you put
Yes.
it out there in the universe, your thought process, and then you prepare yourself for, because it's going to come to you.
Yes.
And what's the spirit practice with that?
Okay, well, Dad, you just said it at the beginning. You said putting it out there with your intention. Did everyone hear him say that? That's a spiritual practice. So we live in a responsive universe. It's going to respond. It's always responding. What I'm inviting you to do is to be conscious in what you're creating so that your responses that come back to you are what you're calling forth. So, Dad, as we say our intentions, you bet that's propelling it into motion. So just Wesley's desire to say from this point forward, if he said, my intention is to build a strong relationship with my higher power, if that was your intention, then yes, that's exactly what's going to begin to happen. His willingness to keep the door open for that to happen is where it's really going to speed up what is going on in this life. Did that make sense?
Yeah, but it's not just going to happen, right? I have to take action.
You have to be participating. You are co-creating. Spirit is always present. God is always present. We must co-create. It works through us. So it's our willingness to be in that playing field of co-creation. because otherwise you're just here by default and things are happening, but you're not participating. Well, I like to say, this is an interactive experience. Being human and spiritual is an interactive thing. We must interact with it.
Reminds me of that saying, faith without works is dead.
There you go. Exactly.
Always remind myself.
Perfect.
Remind myself of that.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes?
I think an interesting situation because each person in my
We do. We want to hear you.
each person in my family, I think, has a little bit of a different belief. So sometimes I feel like, that those wishes of our family, the unified wishes of our family, aren't coming to fruition because we have different pathways or different ways of approaching it. So I'm just curious. Do you have any suggestions about that?
So is it different beliefs, or is there one core belief that there's one power named by different things
Well,
and
different
different people?
beliefs and also some more positive, some more negative.
So, do you have a core intention for your family?
No.
Great. So,
Maybe I need to.
what's possible there is I would invite you to have it based on qualities. What's your name? Karen, I thought so. So if you base the core intention on qualities, so in other words, you will find a common thread between all of you, even with different pathways, of what are the qualities we wish to experience. Is it love? Is it forgiveness? Is it connection? Is it joy? Then you could each have your pathways, but if you have a thread of this is our intention in our family, to experience this, we may come at it in different ways, but we're calling forth the experience, and you get to list those qualities. Does that make sense, Karen?
So as long as we all kind of agree on qualities.
It's a beginning. It's absolutely a beginning. And I want to inspire you to keep being open to the conversation of understanding each other's, where everyone's coming from. When we just expand in our willingness to have conversation with the intention to understand, not to change someone. There's a huge difference. When we are open to conversation with the intention to understand, but not to say, I'm here to change you, I want to understand you. Okay? We still have our own beliefs, but we still can aim for understanding. One more question before we move on to, I have something to show you real quick before. Yes! How are you?
Would you speak just a little bit more about the acknowledgement journal that you talk to your people about?
I'd love to talk about that. I love acknowledgement journals. So years ago when I first began my practice, I was led to write a gratitude journal. Many of us have heard about that. And I would every night open my gratitude journal, and at the top of it I put the date, and I put today I'm grateful for. And I wrote at least 5 things every day that I was grateful for. And it would stay in my bathroom so I would not forget, because when I brushed my teeth, it was right there. What happened over time, and this happens with my clients as well, is when I'm going to sleep with what I'm grateful for, guess how I'm waking up? Pretty powerful, because I start to over time, all of a sudden I started to wake up with, it didn't matter what circumstances were going on in my life. I could still put my feet on the ground and think, wow, I'm so grateful to be right here, right now. Because I went to bed knowing that there's so much good happening. So then as years passed, I began to think, wait a minute, there's so many places I was watching my clients not acknowledge themselves. So the difference is this. Gratitude is when we are grateful and aware of the things that are happening in our life that we are so grateful for. Doesn't mean we made them happen, but we're aware of them, right? Acknowledgements are, we are acknowledging that the only way this happened was because I participated in it. So in other words, acknowledgments would mean you participated. Today I acknowledge myself for being willing to have a difficult conversation with someone I love, walking into work with an intention, being calm in the middle of a difficult moment, whatever it is, but you acknowledge what did you participate in. What happens is it starts to balance out, that where the judgment is going on in our chatter begins to lower and self-love begins to rise up. Can you see that? Because we start to notice more of, wow, I'm growing, I'm changing, and the chatter begins to lose its energy on keeping judgment around. It's very, very powerful, Pauline. I have love. And I love to I'll ask people in the middle of a set, what do you acknowledge yourself for? Lots of times I'll be like, oh, Kim, but I did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And I'll say, and you did lots right too. So it's very important. I have a question for everyone before I'm going to wrap us up in a minute. Is this helpful to have question and answer in the midst after a talk? Yes. Great, great, great. Thank you, Reverend Maureen. Thank you, thank you, thank you for inspiring that. That's beautiful. I am going to pray us out in a moment, and then I'm asking you don't leave right away. We have just a couple more things right after I pray us out. We have a wonderful movie snippet about an event that's coming up in a couple weeks. I want to show you that. And I'm also going to have us pass our wonderful tithe basket. So if you were moved tonight by anything, that if you could support this beautiful center and giving your spiritual donation tithe to it in whatever works for you in whatever form, that would be brilliant, because this center has fabulous things happening and we could support it in all ways. All right? All right, let me pray us right now. Everyone just take a breath in this moment. And as I'm leading us into our prayer, I just want you to think about one thing you're grateful for right now, just right now. And then I want you to think about one thing you acknowledge yourself for right now. How grateful I am to be in this divine space right here in this moment. So eternally grateful. Grateful for life unfolding in such a magnificent way. Grateful for this beautiful, beautiful center. Grateful for Reverend Maureen and all that she brings to this center. I'm so grateful for this home. I know right here and now that the power and the presence of God, that there's just one, and it moves through each and every one of us with such an elegance and such an unlimited fashion. That Spirit is moving through us in such a connected way that everyone here is connected on a vibratory level, and that we are one, that we are in this unified field of awareness that is so rich, that is so overflowing, that is so love-filled, that we choose this evening to live here. We choose and to stay awake, to stay aware, to our practice being our day of life, that we are our practice. That it becomes movement through our daily experience, where we have moments of breath and prayer and intention and affirmation and forgiveness and release and connection with each other that are so deep that our consciousness rises up and remembers the truth of who each and every one of us are. That I bless these beautiful beings here tonight. I bless everything that they are in the midst of right now. I bless that the path before them is illuminated with love, understanding, clarity, and power, and that they choose from this moment on to stay so on the razor's edge of their spiritual practice that everything begins to transform before them because they are so conscious in their co-creation. Grateful for the center, grateful for life. We send blessings to everyone all over this planet right now, that all needs met, all healings are taking place right now, that our consciousness is that deep that it is felt everywhere. For this I give thanks as I release this word. In joy together we say, and so it is. Amen. Amen, amen, amen. I'm so grateful to all of you. It makes me so happy to see these faces.